Hi, welcome to Author Straight Talk with Sarah Gertis. My name is Chuck. That is Sarah. She's the smart one. She's the author, and she's the one that is writing this new book called, guess what? Author Straight Talk. So before we get into today's topic, Sarah, just overview of the book that's coming out really soon.
So, the genesis of the book was to provide a single source of information for authors that maybe have already been published or aspiring authors. And it's really the compilation, Chuck, of many years of learning of authoring, both in the nonfiction world and the fiction world, of the how to's. What to look at and evaluate, what to avoid, how you can better your product, how you can make more sales. What are the things that people are not telling you? And people, I mean, in the industry, your agent, if you have one, your editor, your publisher. How can this information help you get your book to market faster, more cost effectively, and frankly, have just more sales than you would without it otherwise?
Well, speaking of sales, one thing that's changed a lot in the last 20 years since you were a young aspiring author, and that is the
Are you
use
so
of,
flattering?
yeah, I know, right? That is the use of social media, and particular using social media for sales. Talk about what you've learned over the past few years and using social media to your benefit.
You bet. Well, if we actually put it in social media time frame, every 2 years, to be realistic, is a complete overhaul, don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, so many applications are coming out, and the way people are using those applications. It used to be that having a blog was just enough for an author, and so they would write a blog, and that's how readers would keep connected. And then there became applications and sites like Goodreads, where that is a reader-author forum where they can connect. And then with the advent of all the applications on the phone. And so people want information instantaneously. Well, that information can be consumed in different ways. You have Facebook on the desktop. Well, guess what? 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it was all the early adopters, the people in technology or the people in business that were using it. Now it's a lot of grandmas. So a lot of the readers, a lot of younger readers don't even use Facebook at all. So the trends have changed. So then it goes to Instagram or Snapchat, and then Instagram got purchased by Facebook, and they've changed some things. So, you really have to look at social media and your author readership based on their patterns, if you know them, if you can identify that, and rotate that knob on the dial. I like to just think about that, and I've used that in my own marketing and sales efforts. And that dial, depending on which way you turn it, is going to increase the sales of your book or decrease it.
So what you're saying is the MySpace page that I have isn't going to help me sell a book.
You just really dated yourself, Chuck. I'm sorry to say. Yeah. You know what? Let me give you an example. Okay. So, part of Author Straight Talk is because I'm a very blunt person, and I just call it like it is. And I reveal, what I'm making in royalties and what I've gotten in advances and how much money I've spent, because it's important and nobody else is sharing the information. So here's a great example. My husband is kind of my default marketing guy. He can stay up in the middle of the night like a bat hanging on the wall, working on my marketing for me. And that allows me to just write and be creative. Well, in his former life in technology, he ran marketing departments and then later on businesses. And he's very keenly aware of money going out for a product or service and then money coming in. So he decides this grand experiment with Facebook, and he says, okay, let's just set aside a budget of $2,500, which at the time was all the money in the world. And he starts to progressively spend, $50, then $250, then $500 on an advertising campaign in Facebook. They've got a billion users on any given day, and surely a small fraction of those people would want to read my women's general interest fiction. So every time he is doing a campaign, you change the tagline and the words, you put in your keywords for the search engine, and he started playing around. This tag, that tagline, another tagline, this hashtag, this keyword, over and over and over. And at the end of the day, 6 months later, it was almost a wash. So almost a wash means on some days it was maybe $100 more than 2,500. On other days it was a little less. But I mean, honestly, I think we were within $100 of break even on either side of making any money. So 2,500 in, barely $2,500 out. Facebook itself is one of the hardest avenues to make money on social media. And frankly, I do not know today a single author that can track their sales to and through Facebook advertising.
But isn't it almost necessary to kind of be in that space? I mean, let's be honest.
Okay, so let's backtrack that question. Having a presence on Facebook is different from spending advertising dollars on Facebook.
Got it.
Okay, there's a huge difference. So, does everybody need a presence on Facebook? Yeah, every real estate agent has a Facebook on a presence. I do. I'm very I'm not really active on it because it has given me so little in terms of sales. However, I am active on it just for a reader connection. Now, let me give you a different example of Instagram. So, Instagram is fantastic because you can actually see the data. I can see who is coming to my page. I can see if they're male or female. I can see kind of where they're coming from. You can get apps that actually show you this information. And so I can tell you right now that over 60% of my followers and people who come to my site are men. I have no idea why this is. I'm writing women's fiction. However, just a side note, I do have an idea. I was told by an executive at Barnes and Noble that the majority of people who read women's contemporary fiction are men. Did you know that, Chuck?
I didn't. No, I would have never guessed that. I confess I've
Yeah.
read your women's fiction.
Well, just as a complete side note, men will never admit to this,
Yeah.
but they read it to actually understand women better, to get tips on communication, to actually see what's going on in the bedroom, how they can get better. So that's a complete aside. However, I was able to validate some of that information from the data on Instagram. So, do I advertise on Instagram? No, I don't. I never have. But when I started posting a picture of one of my covers on Instagram, my readership on Kindle, on my ebooks, skyrocketed. I mean, it went up like 6 times, and I could track it from within seconds of that post or within an hour of the post. And so I started doing that on a continual basis. So the sales from Instagram, just posting, not advertising, there's a direct correlation on that social media platform to sales for me.
Well, in the book, I assume you get into maybe a little bit more of the analytics and sort of how all that works. But for the sake of this particular video and kind of the overview, would you say, yes, it's good to be on social media, but don't necessarily expect social media to help you sell books? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, that's a very good summary. People don't do some of what I call branding. This is a marketing and a branding exercise with social media. You are branding in that reader's mind who you are, what type of books you are writing. You're giving your author promise. If you're going to write in sci-fi, they're going to have this great otherworld experience, and you're not going to break that promise. However, as you build that brand and keep it consistent across social media platforms, you will find that certain activities you do will impact the sales barometer. Just like I said with Instagram, Facebook, not so much. Instagram, yes. And then there are others that I do detail in the book that talk about specific programs, promotions, giveaways. I have to say that the book itself is not all about marketing and sales of your book. It is an overview of how to get your book to market faster, more efficiently, and more profitably. But social media cannot be ignored. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, and I think, and again, my background is more on the music side, and I've seen
Mm.
bands that have literally, gotten crowds together in, a town square, like thousands of people
Hmm.
just using
Right.
social media. So I can definitely see the benefits of it, and I don't think you want to ignore it, but I don't think it's the end all either. At least that's what I think you're
Yeah, and
saying.
your comparison about music, it really is. It's so annoying for most of us authors because music is so viral, and in 2.5 minutes you can determine if you love a song and if you want to know more about the band, and then you go get immediate gratification because you can go down to the park or you can go down to the bar or at the concert, and see your band and get that immediate gratification. It is not as easy with a book. There's no Reader's Digest version. You can't get in a crowd with a bunch of other people. You actually have to sit down, buy the book, and read it. Sometimes you're going to get a little excerpt. So for authors, just by the medium we're using, it is a lot tougher to get that connection. However, if you're going to use the social media, do it wisely, understand what you're trying to achieve. Great example with Instagram. I had this gentleman, he direct mailed me or, DM'd me. And he said, I'm trying to understand if I should write for myself or I should chase trends. Now, it just so happened, we talked about that in the last video. But I said, okay, this is too long for my thumbs. My thumbs are going to break. So give me your email and I will answer this question. Well, on email, I said, look, and I answered his questions. And I said, where are you from? Kind of, I just was inquiring. And it turns out he was an executive vice president of French Telecom, and he wanted to write a book. Well, he found me because of my Instagram account. So now I have that relationship with him. Who knows if anything else is going to come of it, but you never know who's going to, tap into you, who is going to come across your site, how will they impact you in the future? And, that has a far greater value than, making $5, excuse me, on the sale of your book.
Yeah. Well, it's all part of the branding, and I know that you go into more detail in the book. The book is Author Straight Talk, and we're talking with the author of Author Straight Talk on this video series, which is called Author Straight Talk. How original is that? And so you can connect with Sarah on social media. Just click the links below. You can see the direct links, Instagram, here on the YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done that already. You'll get updates every time we add one of these new videos in there. Next time, we're going to discuss the critical part of editing your book. That's a big deal, and we'll discuss that in more detail next time right here on Author Straight Talk with Sarah Gerdes.